My name is Rick Smith. I'm the creator of the YouTube channel As Simple as That. I try to provide tips and techniques to people on how to do things that, quite honestly, they're not sure they can do on their own, but would like to. This episode, I'm going to share with you 8 powerful tips on how to transform your garage or your workshop into an amazing place. And if you stick around to the end, I've got a couple extra bonus tips that will make your place the envy of everybody. A couple years ago, my wife and I sat down and started talking about where we wanted to be in retirement. We kind of knew that our 2-story 1920-ish house, where you had to take stairs to go to the bedroom and take stairs to go to the basement to do laundry, probably wasn't going to be something we wanted to do forever. So we thought, got a wild hair, let's sit down with a builder and see what it'd take to build our dream home with everything that we've always wanted. Of course, my focus was the garage and a workshop. Having lived for decades in a detached garage that was dingy, very dimly lit, dirty all the time, and not a lot of space, I knew I wanted to have something better than that. So today I'm going to share with you 8 tips that I learned along the way in building our garage and workshop that really made it a wonderful place. And at the end, I've got a couple special bonus tips that really put our garage and workshop over the top. So with that, let's get started. Tip 1, and I'm going to start these in the order of what I think was the most effective tip, was lighting. I can't say it enough. Lighting, lighting, lighting. Being used to having a single bulb in the garage and maybe the garage door opener light, I was always hooking up special lights to be able to see my projects. Well, when we sat down and talked to the electrician, I said, I want lights everywhere in the garage. Now we have a 3-car garage all together, and so I wanted 8-foot strips of LED lighting over each stall for the car and in my workshop. He thought I was crazy, but he went ahead with it. And I think when we got done, he saw the benefit of doing that. Now, having looked back on it and looking at these photos, you can see there's a lot of good light in the areas where the garage doors aren't. I thought about putting them over the garage doors, but figured that most of the time I'd be working on projects, the garage doors would be open and I'd have that natural sunlighting coming in. So this worked out real well. Tip number 2 has to do with the floor. Get it coated. I went ahead and built the house with nice brand new cement floors, nice and smooth. And after one winter of salt stains coming off my car and almost impossible to clean up all the dust, the woodworking dust that I created, I said, I've got to get the floor coated. So I talked with a local epoxy floor coating guy. He came over, looked at it, gave me a quote, and we said, let's go for it. And amazingly, it took me about 2 hours to move everything out of the garage the day before, and it took him from 7 a.m. till about 1 p.m. to grind down the floor, treat the floor, and button up all his stuff and be done at 1:30, quarter to 2 in the afternoon. And the amazing thing was, the next day, he said I could drive on it and put all my stuff back in. And here I am another 1.5 years later, and man, I would never build a house without a garage that was coated. It's so nice to clean the dust up. Oil spills don't stick to the floor. That wipes up very simply. And like I said, in the winter, with all that snow and dirt and salt from the winter weather, I can just bring my cars in, hose them down, and wash that all down the floor drain. So tip number 2 is, if you can do it, coat your floor. Tip number 3, and next on the priority list, was outlets everywhere. Now, there is codes in different places about minimum distance between outlets, but believe me, put as many in as you can. And the other tip is to put them at chest height or workbench height. So when you have workbenches or other devices in your garage, it's easy to plug them in without having to move things to get out of the way. Now, as you can see from the pictures and things that I've provided here, I've got them about every 5 or 6 feet apart on my workshop wall, and then in the rest of the garage, it's the same thing. I even made provisions, as you can see from the pictures, of having an outlet in the ceiling so I could plug in a retractable extension cord that plugs in up there. So in addition to having accessibility on the walls, I could pull that down and pull it to any place I wanted if I wanted to move a tool out in the middle of the floor or something like that. I've even used it to pull outside my garage door to hook up a grinder or something where I'm working on a lawnmower or something like that, and not having to pull extension cords out and find an outlet on the outside of the house. So tip number 3, put as many outlets in as you can and then some. Tip number 4 has to do with the finish on your walls. The builder wanted to put sheetrock up and paint all the walls in our garage. And I said, oh, that's fine, I don't mind that. But in the workshop, I want to have walls that I can hang stuff anywhere without having to worry about finding studs or putting in backer boards and things like that. So he told me that they would put up plywood, or in this case, OSB board, organized strand board, on the workshop walls, which was a godsend. I didn't have to worry about where I hooked things up. They painted it white, so it kind of looked like the rest of the garage, and it's worked out just wonderfully for me. Had I thought back a little farther into it, knowing that I would probably have stuff hanging in other parts of my garage, I probably should have done it there, but I've been able to make do with the sheetrock and hitting the the framing for the walls. So tip number 4 is, when in doubt, put up wood for your walls, and it'll make your life of storing and hanging things much easier. Tip 5 is French cleats. Now, if you haven't heard about them, look at the link I have in my description on what are French cleats and how do you make them. They're an amazing, simple way of providing a method to hang things on your walls. Essentially, I took 1x6s, split them in half with an angle on my table saw, and that created me strips that I could put on my wall, and then using the other half, I would cut those into short pieces and make a piece of wood that I could form to hold different devices such as angle grinders or hammers or saws. And as you'll see in the pictures here, I've done that quite a bit. I even used them to hang my yard tools such as rakes and shovels, even my snow shovels, on the other side of my garage. And yes, I had to hook those on the sheetrock walls, but I found the studs, mounted up the strips of French cleats, and then made the brackets that I could slide so they all fit on that one wall. So if you're looking to hang things on your walls, tip number 5 is a good one, French cleats. Tip number 6 is everything movable. I'm so used to, in our old detached garage, of having old 2x4 workbenches that were just sitting in a corner all dusty and couldn't be moved. They were covered with things. When I built my new workbenches for my garage, I made sure that I put wheels on everything, including the ones that had the woodworking tools that I have in my shop. So why do that? Oh man, it makes cleaning so much easier. I can just roll things out of the way, get my vacuum out or my broom out and clean it, and then just slide it back in place. The other thing it does is it makes it easier if you've got some longer or larger piece of wood or something that you want to cut and you can't fit it on the workbench against the wall. Just roll the workbench out and you can make it work out there. So my advice to you is, if you're putting in a new workbench or you have existing workbenches, put some wheels on it. It'll make your life a lot easier. Tip number 7 is portable shelving and totes. As you'll see in these pictures, I opted for the plastic heavy-duty shelving units. I got the white because it worked better in my garage, but they also have them in black and yellow, like the totes that you can buy at Lowe's. The other thing that I would point out is I use clear covered totes on my shelves. I have different sizes depending on what I've got, and of course I bought a label maker, the anal engineer in me, and put labels on all of them. But I can walk up to the shelving and look at all the totes and see what I'm looking for, whether it be tape, paint brushes, tools for fixing the hose. All those things are in separate totes that I can get at real easy. Another mini tip in those is, as you stock your shelves, leave a half of shelf open about mid-height. That way you can pull a tote off another shelf that's stacked, set it on that shelf, open it up, take what you want out of there, close it back up and put it away. You don't have to carry the tote over to another table to have something to set it on. So as you're planning and organizing your storage on your shelves, try to keep an empty shelf space that you can move totes to open and look at things. The last tip, tip number 8, has to do with sink and hose bib. Now, as you'll see in these pictures, I opted to have a laundry sink put in the garage. Fortunately, our laundry room is right behind the wall that the sink is on, so the plumbing was already there to hook up the hot and cold water. And it makes it so much nicer. You don't have to go inside to wash your hands, or if you have something that's a bit dirty and you want to rinse it off, or even dirty rags you can rinse off there. So much easier than having to use facilities in your house. The one thing I didn't plan for was a hose bib. They put on the sink faucet head that it would allow me to hook my hose up to. And for the first year, I would just hook up a hose and then I could use it to run the water to my hose, whether it's inside or out from that faucet. Unfortunately, when you do that, you can't use the sink. So after a year of living with it that way, I contacted our plumber and said, is it possible to put in a hose bib near the floor right next to the sink? And without going into the long sordid details, he cut out a piece of the sheetrock there, connected it to the plumbing that was there for the laundry room, and then I put up a piece of plastic siding that covered up the hole and gave me a good cleaning surface behind the sink and around the hose bib, which I didn't have with the sheetrock wall. I mean to tell you, it's so much nicer having a place where I can hook up the hose and leave it hooked up and pull it out whenever I need it. I opted to get those expandable hoses, and I just throw it in a bucket next to the hose bib. And so whenever I want to rinse off a car or even have the hose go outside the garage to rinse off a lawnmower or something out in the driveway, I've got that hose there, and it saves me from dragging a hose from around the side of the house all the way up to the driveway. So if you got the ability to put it in, for sure get a sink for washing off things. And while you're doing it, try to put in a hose bib that you can hook up a separate hose to. Okay, now for those bonus tips. Bonus tip number 1 is get a light sensor that you can put in the ceiling of your garage. I have a light sensor put in there because the electrician said trying to have a light sensor at the switches on either door coming into the garage is a little harder to wire, and it's a little confusing for the logic to make the lights come off and on. So what he did was he put a light sensor in the ceiling, which was in a general common area where motion is, and it goes out about 10 to 12 feet from that point to activate the lights when there's motion found. Now, you can set it at different timings to go off, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. I've opted for the 5 minutes. So when I'm working in my shop and I go into the house or go outside, the lights will automatically shut off. But when I walk back in, or as we come home at night and it's dark and I open the garage door and the car pulls in, the whole bank of LED lights come on. And man, it's nice to have all that brightness rather than the dingy yellow garage door opener lights being the only thing you have. The other benefit is you're coming out of the house into the garage, be it when it's dark or even during the day. As soon as you step into the garage, all the lights come on. So if you have some trash to take out, or you're going out to the freezer in the garage, you don't have to worry about flipping a light switch when you come into the garage or leave the garage. Much simpler than having light switches. So if you can work that out, that's a great asset to have in your garage. The second bonus tip is get a space heater that's wired and plumbed into your garage. Now, again, as I mentioned before, I spent decades working in a detached garage in the winter, which was so cold that you had to have some sort of propane-fired gas heater. And they were great for keeping your legs warm, but to try to work out on a workbench, it just didn't cut it. So as we laid out the plans for the garage, I had them put in a natural gas line to the ceiling in the garage. And as you can see from the pictures, they installed a space heater that's up at the ceiling, which is a wonderful way to heat this garage. On the wall is a thermostat, which I can control the temperature. And I typically, when we're in the dead of winter, I run it at maybe 45, maybe even lower if it's really cold out. But if I'm going to work in the garage, I go out a half an hour early, turn it up to 55 to 60 degrees, let it heat up the garage for a while, and then I come out and work on my jobs. I can do it in short sleeve shirts, long sleeve shirts, sweatshirts. It just makes working on things so much easier. The other benefit by doing that is if you keep it warm enough, you can keep paints and glues and things in your garage and not have to worry about them getting too cold. So if you can swing it in any way, figure out a way to wire in or plumb in a gas line to your garage and hang a space heater from your ceiling, you will never regret it. I'm going to give you one more special bonus. I want to show you what the garage looks like that I've been talking about. You've seen a lot of pictures and stuff, but I'm just going to grab the camera and just slowly walk around so you can get a sense for the work area I have and the storage in this amazing workspace I have. Okay, to give you the full effect, I'm coming in through the shop door, garage door. And this is where I keep all my equipment for snow blowing and the lawn care. This side is all woodworking and tools for doing my work. As you can see, I have a tray or a cart that's got wheels on it that has all my spare wood in for projects. And as you can see, there's a myriad of workbenches, as mentioned earlier, all have wheels on them. Some for just workbenches and others for tools. I mentioned my French cleats, and you can see the wall here of things that I have on the wall. Some are not being used right now, and I'll repurpose those with new tools. And as you can see, I'm also a Dewalt fan, so I have plenty of Dewalt tools hanging on the wall. Below you can see a bank of chargers for the Dewalt batteries that I created a bracket that is a French cleat design that the chargers are on with a power strip below it. I should mention I have storage underneath the work surfaces on those workbenches. And as I mentioned, more power tools that I was fortunate enough to get from a retired woodworker. So I have a lot of equipment that I can use for doing different things. This is kind of a unique setup. I put my air compressor on top or below on a cart that also has my shop vac with a dust separator that I can wheel around the garage to plug in. Maybe I need to pump up the tires in the car, I can do that. This is the sink area that I mentioned in my video. I've got a storage cabinet to the left of it for supplies, as well as one above for cleaning supplies. And here you can see down below my hose bib that was put into the wall. And it's hard to tell, but if you look at the wall, you go up towards the top, you can see a crease right almost at the top of the door. That's that plastic piece of paneling I put in to allow me to clean this entire wall and also cover up the hole from them installing the hose bib after the house was built. Another bonus tip that I didn't mention but had talked about all the extra power plugs. If you've got enough power plugs, you can create yourself your own mini bar refrigerator for drinks that you can use whenever you want. I also had enough wall space to create a bunch of images of trips that my wife and I have taken hiking throughout the country, which is a nice memory as we're going through the years. Now we're over into the other two stalls of the garage. My wife and I parked there. I keep the snowblower sitting there in the winter months. Otherwise, I move it back over into this corner over here, call it the rat's nest. In the winter, it becomes a storage area for stuff that's usually outside, like the walk-behind mower and planters. In the summer, I move the snowblower over here, and most of that other stuff moves outside. So nice, convenient way to swap things during the seasons. On this wall, I needed a place to put my long pieces of wood, so I bought those shelving mounts for hanging wood, and I put that up there. It's high enough that it doesn't interfere with opening car doors, so it's pretty convenient for that empty wall. You can notice this is got wood for siding on the door, so it was easier to mount brackets for putting that up, but I did put them on the studs just to make sure. And then here is my use of French cleats for my yard tools, the snow shovels, the rakes, the digging shovels, some pruning things. Very convenient. I can just slide those brackets around up there so that they all would fit on the wall. As you can see, with the snow shovels, it took a little placement that was easier than re-drilling holes in the wall. And then finally, I'll go back to my portable shelves and totes. You can see this wall here. It's in front of the cars. It's very convenient. There wasn't anything planned for that wall, so it worked out perfect for shelving. And I have a separate shelf for cleaning for cars, and then outdoor stuff like lawn fertilizer, weed killer, stuff to clean siding with, all that. I did purchase a wall-mounted vacuum to ease or clear up on some floor space, and that's been really good. The hose is long enough to reach to the rear of the cars when they're in the garage. And then finally, this is the shelf with all the totes. Hopefully you can see how easy it is to tell what's in each of them. That's the reason for the clear totes, but as I mentioned, I like to have stuff labeled, so I went ahead and put labels on everything. Probably easier and more convenient for my wife when she's looking for something. You can see that. And then I mentioned having an empty shelf. I'm going to set the tripod down here if you can bear with me a second. And I can demonstrate what I mean about having that shelf for when you're wanting to look at a tote. Say I want to get a certain kind of tape out of there, I can set it down here, take the top off, reach in here, play around with what I'm looking for, get it out of there, and then put it back where it's supposed to be. If that shelf was full, then I would probably have to pick the tote up off the wall and then carry it over to this workspace area that I have between my workshop and the garage. This is a nice little table here, not too easy to see, but there's a crank here that you can raise and lower that to different heights if you wanted to sit down and work at something. Plus, it's got two pull-out drawers here that I keep my woodworking stuff in, and some miscellaneous supplies. And then my last purchase for the garage was this Husky rollable tool cart. Let me get this easier to see here. And it's been real handy rather than having to dig into toolboxes. I set in all my tools here that I work with. And I have, go down one more level, I've got all the sockets that I need there. And then the hand tools over here. The rest of the shelving I have for miscellaneous things that I use. This has made consolidating my tools so much easier than what I had in my old setup with toolboxes and pegboard on the wall. So consider getting that. And again, it's on wheels. So when I want to clean that area, I just roll it out of the way and I'm good to go. I forgot to mention there is the floor drain over here. I placed that in the middle of one of the stalls, kind of in the center of the garage. So if anything comes off the cars over by the wall, it will drain to that, as well as the car right above it. And then when I clean the shop out, I can just push the water over to that. There you have it, my 10 tips for making your workshop and your garage area an amazing place to work in. Hopefully these tips will be as helpful to you as they were for me when I planned this new garage. Please be sure to check out the other As Simple as That videos on my YouTube channel. And if you would, please subscribe. That way you'll get the latest and greatest video posts as they come out. Thanks for joining me.